let's get right to it. It's time for your reality check, and this one, America, this one's big. In a stunning upset, Democrat Conor Lamb win an incredibly close special election in Pennsylvania's 18th Congressional District, beating out his candidate, Rick Saccone, in a deeply conservative district that President Trump won by 20 points in 2016. The race was a nail-biter, with CNN reporting Lamb was in the lead with 627 votes. Does this bode well for Democrats in the midterm elections, or is it just a fluke? America, I gotta tell you, I think it bodes well. But let's talk about the lessons learned, because I think this is very, very important. And so anybody who pays attention to what's happening in my life or watches, pays attention to what's going on in Fowler Nation will know that this is a race that we covered very carefully here at the Fowler Show. And we've been watching Pennsylvania on the Pennsylvania map and this special election for quite some time. I covered this on election night at Fox News, and I will tell you why this race is so important. This race is important because this is a bellwether, a warning sign to both Democrats and to Republicans, right? Like I said at the top of this whole thing, President Trump won this seat by 20 points. Now, a couple of things before we get into the details. Now, this seat will not exist in 9 months. Because, like as we reported here on the Fowler Show before, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has ruled that all the districts in Pennsylvania are all gerrymandered and all have to be redrawn. And so they have been redrawn, and everybody will have to run their new districts come this November. So this race is really not a real race because it ends as soon as it happened. But with that being said, this is a race where the Republicans put a lot of skin in the game. They pumped in almost $10 million. President Trump visited this district twice. Kellyanne Conway visited, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner visited, and Don Jr. visited, to no avail because Conor Lamb, the Democrat, won this race. Let's take a listen to what Conor Lamb said in his victory address to supporters in the Pennsylvania 18th District.
Well, it took a little longer than we thought, but we did it. We followed what I learned in the Marines. Leave no one behind.
Now, what makes this race so interesting, and the reason why I do believe that Democrats were able to pull this off, number one, is this seat was vacated by Tim Murphy, who was a congressman who had some Me Too issues, who decided to resign, and for a long time, for 2 cycles, Democrats ran nobody in this race. Rule number 1. No matter what, you should put up a candidate. Rule number 2 that Democrats can learn. We're going to talk about what Republicans can learn too, but let's talk about what Democrats can learn. Rule number 2, don't forget who your base is. Don't forget who your voters are. What Conor Lamb who he talked to, his voters, he realized that this district was working class. These are working class blue-collar folks, coal miners, steel workers, teachers, government employees, people who work hard for a living. And so here's what he did. He went and he began to have a conversation with them. And he didn't shy away from the issues. He went and he says, we need Social Security to work. We need Medicare to work. We need a tax cut that's not just a giveaway to millionaires and billionaires, but we need a tax cut that works for all Americans. He also was very clear and said, we need to make sure that we protect labor unions so that you have a collective voice at the workplace. He also made it very clear when he ran, he says, and what we know is this: many of you who worked in coal mines and worked at steel plants for your entire lives have invested in a pension. Right now, your pension might go belly up. Washington should do everything in their power to fix your pensions. That's what Conor Lamb ran on. Now, people will make the argument that Conor had all the looks and all the glitz and all the glamour. And it is true. Conor Lamb is a looker. He's indeed a looker. He's young, he's vibrant, but he also took the time out to understand the people. He ran a race that was not about Washington, that was not about Barack Obama, that was not about Hillary Clinton. He ran a race that was about Pennsylvania's 18th Congressional District. He didn't make it national at all. He actually had no visitors from Democratic national superstars. The only Democrat who you would call a national superstar who visited the 18th Congressional District was Joe Biden. No other Democrat visited. But Conor Lamb continued on his message about how we make this economy work for those who work for a living. And guess what? Working people showed up for Conor in a big way. They showed up for him in a bold way. And they said, we're going to stand for somebody that's going to stand with us. Now, let's be very real. He didn't take all the progressive positions that everybody would have wanted him to take. But that's okay, because that doesn't represent the 18th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. For example, Conor Lamb, he ran on this ideal. He himself doesn't believe in abortion, but he believes abortion's a law of the land and should stay that way. He has problems with Nancy Pelosi. What Republicans try to do is they try to make this race about Nancy Pelosi. And he says, I don't know Nancy. Nancy's not on the ballot. Conor's on the ballot. And he won this race. On the other hand, the other candidate, the Republican in this race, he literally ran as Trump Jr. Everything that Trump said, he ran on. He was anti-labor. He believed that Pennsylvania should be a right-to-work state. They carpet bombed the Pennsylvania 18th District with these anti-Nancy Pelosi ads trying to connect Conor Lamb to Nancy Pelosi, even though Conor says, I don't know Nancy. I'm not going to vote with Nancy. Moving on. President Trump visited this region, revisited this congressional district twice to no avail. Mind you, he made some difference up, but to no avail. Because the voters on the ground were enthusiastic, they were active, and they had a candidate who heard their concerns and understood their needs. Now, this is what this means for the midterm elections coming up. For Republicans, they need to find a message, and they need to find it quickly. And this ideal of we're just going to run on the tax cuts, that's not going to be an answer. Because what we are seeing from poll after poll after poll, and focus group after focus group after focus group, is that when it comes to white suburban women, they have a problem with this White House chaos. When it comes to working class men, and when it comes to working class women, they want a candidate that's going to go to Washington and make Washington work for them. And all they've heard from Washington in the past year and a half has been a lot of talk and no action. President Trump promised that he would pass an infrastructure bill. We're still waiting. President Trump promised that he'd build a wall. We're still waiting. President Trump promised that he'd make our schools safer. We're still waiting. America. And so remember, this race that we're talking about, the Pennsylvania 18th Congressional District is a R plus 11. So it's Republican plus 11 points. Paul Ryan's district is R plus 4. Devin Nunes is at R plus 6. Republicans should be very nervous about this upcoming midterm elections if they don't have a clear message to resonate with working class voters. The good news for Democrats is this. Here is the new, Democrats, listen to me. Let's stop having Washington run our campaigns, and let's begin to run these localized races around local issues. All you have to ask is Conor Lamb, but he's not the only one. Ask Danica Rome, the first transgender woman to be elected to the state legislature in the state of Virginia. In a very conservative district, Danica didn't run because she was a transgendered. She ran because she cared about the traffic concerns, and she won overwhelmingly. Ladies and gentlemen, is this the beginning of a blue wave? I don't know. But what I do know is this. If Democrats want to win this midterm elections, we've got to focus on local issues. And we're going to run localized races and not let the national influence overrun our local concerns.